All right, everyone, welcome back for another episode of A Desire to Inspire. And what an exciting guest I have today. Mr. Jamie Baker, former NHL player, 10 seasons, over 400 games, is joining me for the show today. Dude, I can't thank you enough for being here with me. I can't wait for you to share your story. I do want to acknowledge you for your time. I know that it's going to be well spent, and our listeners are going to get some great information out of this, man. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me, Manny. And I love the name, Desire to Inspire. It's like Dr. Seuss he's happy right now. He's rolling,
Yeah, you know
He's
that
thinking, that's awesome. And it's not a nursery rhyme. It's good though. Like it's got a little jingle to it, and it's like, boom, it's impactful. Desire to Inspire. I love it. So thanks a lot for having me.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. That title, it took me a little bit to figure out. I was thinking about what the name would be for days and actually weeks. And it was actually a title of one of the chapters in my book. And so when I was going through it and I had some help from somebody that was working with me on figuring the name out, it just stuck, it popped, and it was like, boom, there it is. And like, here we are today. So amazing. All right, now listen, this isn't about me. Let's jump into your life. Dude, you've got so much going on. You're still part of the NHL. You're doing all kinds of amazing things. But I want to know really where your journey began and where it all started for you.
Yeah, born and raised in Canada, Nepean, Ontario, so just a suburb of Ottawa. And, just all my family was there from Canada. Middle class, but like on the spectrum of middle class, I would say we were we weren't lower middle, but between lower and middle, if you will. We had a house, just a regular house. Wasn't huge or anything. My parents had to save extra money to go on vacations or to pay for my hockey. My mom worked at a university, Carleton University, there as an assistant to a professor, and then my dad worked in the government. So it's not like we weren't hurting. Like we had the necessities in life, but there weren't a lot of extras, if you will. We didn't have the best cars or anything like that, but it could afford for my hockey and do other activities. We had access to a cottage, but the cottage, it's funny, it was on and these are some of my best memories as a kid. It was on a lake about 2 hours from Ottawa. And it was really, you talk about memory, you look back. The cottage was the ones my parents had back then when I was growing up, was on an Indian reservation. Algonquin Indians owned the land, and it was government land, so they could never actually own the land. So they owned the dwelling, that was it. And it worked out because they didn't have the money to really own a big cottage. So I think they only paid at the time, $1,200 a year. So it was like $100 a month. Now it wasn't winterized, so we'd only use it for about 5 months of the year. And my parents went in with my aunt and uncle, but we used to go up there in the summers, and it was like we had rugs, industrial rugs for some of the interior walls. We had an outhouse. The shower was outdoors. We didn't have running water. We had to get 5-gallon tank in this thing in the water, in town for drinking water. I used to go down in buckets, 2 buckets, one in each hand, or pails or whatever, and fill those up with water after dinner every night. Bring it back to the lake water. They'd heat it up, and that's what they'd wash the dishes with. So this was like camping with a roof and electricity. And there were 2 fridges, the food fridge and the beer fridge. So that's the type of upbringing. Great family, it would work hard, and I don't know, get your grades, school first. A lot of family stuff in the summers, always bringing friends up the cottage and all that. And so that's my upbringing was right there, and just outside of Ottawa. Went to high school, and then I ended up getting. I was a good hockey player. I was always good, and I'd play in the basement by myself or play in the street with friends. It was definitely my passion. Even before I even have many memories, when I was 4 and 5, if there was anything that resembled a hockey stick, I had it in my hand. I was playing it. Probably, nowadays you say ADD. They had to meet with my teachers when I was in kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2. They're like, you got to keep Jamie busy. He's got a lot of energy, which is good. And then sometimes it's not good.
It's still the same, by the way.
Yeah,
hasn't changed.
Can be a troublemaker. Jamie can be a troublemaker if he gets restless. They used to say if he used to when this is grade 1 and 2, but if he finishes a test, he'll finish it. He'll do everything really fast if he finishes it. then you got to give him more work. And the teachers would say, like, he finished it early and we gave him more work. And the thing is, he was actually like, I didn't get them all right, but I wasn't like failing. It wasn't like I was just filling it out just to finish it. Like I was getting decent grades. So anyway, had a great upbringing, good family and friends and all that. And then in high school, really, I started to develop, and then had an opportunity to go to St. Lawrence University. They offered me a full ride, a full scholarship, hockey scholarship, which was huge. My parents didn't have all the money. They would have had to, would have been a student loan to go to college. And that was in Canton, New York. It's only about an hour and a half from Ottawa, so really close. Ottawa, it's like 20 minutes on the other side of the border. So even though I was in a different country, so I went there for 4 years. Graduated it's a liberal arts school, so I had a bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Arts in economics, and then in sports and leisure. So, and then I was drafted, I think, my junior year there by the Quebec Nordiques, who are now the Colorado Avalanche. Played a couple of years in the minors. Nothing's ever come easy. I wasn't somebody you'd look at and say, this guy's going to make the NHL or anything. I was always a good player, but not that good. I wasn't a prodigy. And then spent a couple of years in the minors in Halifax, and had, started to develop, got my shot in the NHL. I had a couple of games each year, the first 2 years, but my third year I got a legitimate shot up there and ended up played a little over 7 years in the NHL. And then after that, I retired, didn't know what to do, went through some tough times trying to figure it out, got hit in the dot-com bust of 2000, was a little overextended in technology. And I was in technology a little bit, living here in San Jose. And I can talk later. I feel like this is like, oh, tell us about your whole life. It's like, oh, well, I'm 50 years old. That's
a long life.
Yeah. Well, and then I'm jumping around without getting into details. I'm sure follow-up questions will lead to some of the details of different stories and situations. And
absolutely.
Went through some tough times though, like in the transition for a while, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then ended up getting back at a startup, like I was working in a few companies, high tech. That didn't work out because once the whole thing went south, I was kind of last in, first out type of thing, from an experience standpoint. Tried an internet startup, that didn't work. Did a thing at UBS, Payne Weber for a bit that wasn't the right fit, and then I got into broadcasting. And this will be, I think, we're on the eve of the hockey season starting. I think this is my This will be my 12th year broadcasting with the Sharks. I didn't think it would last this long. 9 years with the radio. This will be my third year on TV. It's the last year of a contract. I have no clue what's going to happen. Anything can happen in this business, that's for sure. I've learned that. So I don't take anything for granted, but, and it's been good. Got divorced, about 7-8 years ago, or actually probably 8 or 9 years ago. It started off amicable, turned to get nasty. It's better, a little better now. I have 2 daughters from my previous marriage. One just graduated college and she's living in Los Angeles. And my other one's a senior at the University of Vermont, playing college hockey there. And then I got remarried a little over 5 years ago to my current wife, Colleen Moraga, and we have a wonderful relationship here in San Jose. And life is good. So there's been, you live to 50, you get lots of ups and downs, and I've definitely gone through a lot of those.
Yeah, what a great story. We met here in Vegas, and I was instantly drawn to you. We had some great conversation, and in following up with you, you were so receiving and ready to help and participate and share your story. What a great synopsis that was. And I do love details, so we're going to jump into that. But before anything, did you ever think when you were going up through the ranks and playing hockey that was your goal the NHL? Were you trying to get to that point, or were you just playing the game because you loved it?
Growing up as a kid, like there's different levels. Growing up as a kid, like you dream of playing in the NHL, but it wasn't a goal. And I've done a lot of coaching and teaching at the youth level, and I get parents of their kid will be 10 or 12 and they're like, what's he need to do to make the NHL? And I'm like, have fun. Like,
yeah, right.
Keep developing. I don't know. He's 12.
That's great. I love that.
Do you know how hard it is to make the NHL? Yeah. I mean, it's like pretty hard. Like the numbers are staggering, not in your favor. Mm-hmm. It's less than 1%. It's like less than less than 1% of 1%, I think. I don't know what it is. Like crazy, right? It's a global sport. So, so it was a dream, but it was never like, I didn't think about it. I watched NHL hockey. I loved it, you know, but I didn't dream, or I didn't make it my goal. My goal was to play on the team that I was on. I was having fun. And then when I got to college, after my freshman year, like I got to college, then I started to think like, I wonder if I could turn this into a profession. Like not even thinking just NHL. Like I wonder if I could play pro hockey,
Right.
you know, and extend my playing career. Like, you know, once you go to college, you're thinking you got 4 more years.
Right.
And it's the real world back in. So when it became a goal was my sophomore year in college. I had a pretty good year. And then after that year, and this was like everybody trains hard now, but I met a guy I went back to Ottawa after my sophomore year in college, and his name is Mark Slater. And, you know, there's like 4 or 5 people that really have had a factor, like an impact on me going pro. And he's one of them. One's my dad. There's a couple of coaches and like a really good family friend, you know, like 2 coaches. These are people that like, why did you make it? Like who impacted you the most, you know? And you could say there's hundreds of people like teammates and this and this and this, but there's like a few people that really stuck out. So this one guy put me on this training program. It was after my sophomore year in college. And I did the training program literally, like legitimately was 5, but probably close to 10 years ahead of its time. I was doing plyometrics, one-legged squats. Like there was a power phase, there was a speed phase, and all of this. I went back my junior year, and I was naive. I just followed it all. I was doing sprints and all kinds of stuff. It was hard work. I mean, I put in the time though, and you know, it worked out with my summer job. Didn't know any better. Not everybody was doing that kind of training.
Right.
And I went back my junior year, and after like 2 days, everybody, like players and coaches, were like, "What happened?" Like I was blowing people. I was so much faster. Technically, my skating wasn't better, but my power, my acceleration was just completely different. And now, like in anything, like if you can be faster in a sport that, you know, like hockey, well, you have more time to make plays. I have more time to be aggressive offensively and get back, you know. So my whole game went to a whole nother level. And then like after my junior year, that's when it became a goal. Like it started my sophomore year and then carried over into the summer. And by my junior year, like I was becoming one of the top players in college hockey. And, you know, professional career was now a goal, and making the NHL was now a goal.
Yeah, that speed attribute is such a big deal nowadays in any sport. I mean, if you don't have the skill to run the quick in baseball, because I played baseball, the 4.5 40 or the 6 flat 60, you know, you're almost not even looked at to make the collegiate rankings. And I'm sure it's no different in hockey and in basketball or football. I mean, it's always such a big asset to have. So developing that, I'm sure, was a huge, huge bonus for you in moving forward. Is the weightlifting different today than it was back when you got into the NHL in the 90s, as far as what programs and training techniques are used for players to really reach their maximum potential?
I would go one step further and say is the weightlifting, but you just used it, the word training, like the training overall, which encompasses fitness,
right,
nutrition, all of it is significantly different. It's like technology has enhanced so many things, and just the studies, you know, and it just does. And the testing and the video, like it's night and day. Like the athletes today, like it's not like we didn't have access to everything they had. So you're different. Like I don't compare this generation to my generation. Like, could I play in the NHL right now? Not the way I played, you know. But if I was playing in today's day and age, like I would be training probably even different than I did.
Right.
You know, even my nutrition, like there's guys that travel with blenders and stuff on the road. You know what I mean? And like we didn't do that. Like I know I played with a guy in Toronto, and they didn't believe him. He said, "I don't skate at all in the summers when I go home." He goes, he like training camp was, he came back and he started skating. His name was Jamie McCown. And so one year they put the trainers, they're like, here's your hockey bag. You know, like you bring it home. Here's your equipment for the summer. And he's like, I don't need it. They're like, well, you got to bring it home. Like, it was like kind of like the coaches want you to bring the hockey bag home. Right. So they put a banana in his bag. Like, and then they zipped up the bag. And it got shipped. And then it came back for training camp, and they opened the bag, and there's the shriveled up hard black banana. Oh, exactly where they put it.
Right.
Those days, they're gone. Like, no one, guys are skating, the nutrition, the weightlifting it's not all heavy like powerlifting. I had a sports, one of the first guys to get a sports hernia. Oh, wow. So I played my first year in San Jose, and I'm not going to get off track because that's a different story, but I played almost the whole year with this thing, and they couldn't even diagnose it. This was in '94. So I was one of the first athletes in hockey to have like a sports hernia operation. And they said, you can play. I played the rest of the year on it. It was painful. Like I could barely get out of bed every morning after a game. But, you know, I took anti-inflammatories and stuff like that. I drank a lot of milk and stuff, and I was eating a lot of bananas because the anti-inflammatories every single day. But I played and finished the season. Then I had season-ending, you know, surgery. But that was because of the way I lifted. You don't see that as much. You know, today when guys train, like first and foremost, it's not to get stronger; it's to prevent injuries. Mm-hmm. So, right. You know, the resources are incredible, the strength and training and the fitness and everything. So it's good, but I think it's also you're pushing it to a limit. You know, we're seeing all the concussions that have come up, in particular in football and hockey. A lot of that has to do with the equipment now is so hard, but the guys, they're like missiles out there. They're so fast, and it's not that they don't have disregard for each other. It's just the way the game is evolved, and they have to try and rein it in a little bit.
Do you think that makes it more competitive today than it was back in your generation?
I think if it's more, the only reason it's more competitive nowadays is, and I don't agree with it, but because there's so much money being made. Mm-hmm. You know, families are willing to try and go for it with their youth players. The same amount of players are making it.
Right. Right.
But there's more families out there that think their kid's going to make it, mm-hmm. and trying to do it. So it is, because it's overwhelming, the numbers. And guys are making, you know, you're 25, 26 years old. You're making, I don't know, that depends on the sport, depends on where you stack up on your team, but $3, $4, $5, $6 million a year, and like you're set up for your life, but you can help all your family members too. So I'd say it's more competitive from that reason.
Sure, it's a completely night and day from, you know, the early '90s to 2016. And you're talking about huge $100 million contracts in some cases.
Yeah,
I mean, it changed people's lives. They get enough in a signing bonus to live off of for the rest of their life.
That creates more problems in it. That creates different problems. You know what? It's not like one is better than the other. Mm-hmm. These athletes today, a lot of them, they're going to retire and they're going to be set for their lives. But you still got to live your life. Like, a lot of money and a lot of free time can also be really, really destructive and bad.
Right.
So it doesn't mean you're going to live a perfect life just because you've got a big bank account. You know, you got a lot of people that come and want a piece of that account, want your money. Like, athletes today are getting hit up more and more, like more than ever, from people that have this investment or this or that, because people know how much they make. So it's just different. It's not better. It's not worse. It's just different than it was just 20 years ago. It's only 2 decades, but it's really evolved and changed.
Yeah, we see that. I mean, there's plenty of documentaries and shows nowadays that exhibit the lifestyle of the athlete, and that's not really suited to manage their money correctly. They're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. They end up broke because they don't have the right financial advisors. They don't have the right people in their corner. And it's not uncommon nowadays that we see plenty of those stories. So I can totally understand where you're coming from with that. Let me ask you this question. What was the biggest challenge when you got into the NHL, when you first arrived?
Maintaining my spot. I worked hard to get there. When you make it to the top league, it's different. You know, it's just different. It's not like anything you've played against right now. And people people don't understand, a couple of things, what happens when you go to pro, because they haven't been there. So, and this could be an athlete or an athlete's parents. And it's one, there's automatic attrition on the way up. In hockey, youth hockey, every 2 years you go to a new age group. It could be different in other sports, but so there's always a drop off. There's people graduating, moving on to the next level, which creates open spots. In college, always seniors that are graduating. It's automatic. Like, you can pick and choose. Like, if you're a running back, or if you're a shortstop, or if you're a point guard, like, you could be a point guard and say, I want to go to Michigan. But if they've got a freshman point guard that's awesome, and you don't think you're going to get the ball that much, you're like, well, maybe I don't want to be behind him for three years. I want to go somewhere that they have a point guard that's senior, that they need somebody next year, right? So those become part of the decision. Then suddenly you get drafted, you get picked, somebody owns your rights, and you have to make it on your own. You have to basically take someone's job. So either the law of diminishing returns, it's an older player that's been there a long time, is slowing down or whatever, or he's got injuries, or you just got to outright beat somebody. Everybody's got experience. Everybody works at the pro level. Everybody's overcome adversity, and everybody wants the paychecks. And that's the hardest part is staying competitive on a day-to-day basis. And then when you get there, naturally already better than you. So you really have to find, what I did. I was always an offensive player my whole life, and I realized if I was going to make the NHL, I had to be a defensive player and a grinder. So I changed my role. I could still contribute offensively, but I became much more defensive. I was a forward. I was a centerman. I had to adapt my game. And, even at the end of my career, I got sent back to the minors. There were guys that were better players, like more skilled than me, that hadn't played in the NHL like I had, because they weren't willing to adapt. And, if you really want to get to a certain level, the higher you go up, the stack, the pyramid, when you get to pro sports, like, everybody wants to ultimately be in the NHL in hockey, the NFL in football, Major League Baseball, like whatever, you get to the top, like, you're gonna fall off at some point, which sucks, but it's reality. And everybody's going there. Like, I tell the story. When I was in Toronto, I had some friends over for dinner. My ex-wife and I, we had some friends over, some college buddies, actually. This was when I was in Toronto. And they left dinner, and I got the flu that night. I was sick all night, throwing up. It was coming out both ends. It was just brutal. Fever, chills. I barely sleep. I wake up in the morning. I feel terrible. I call the trainer. I'm like, okay, I got the flu. He's like, come on in. It's like, it's not that they don't believe you, but everybody has to cover themselves. Like, he's got to answer to somebody. So the coach is going to say, well, did you see him? How do you know how sick he was? So I go in. I actually threw up in the parking lot on the way in, so I had puke breath going in there. So I'm like, here, you're making me come in? Now you got to smell this. This is what I look like. So they're like, oh, yeah, you're sick. So they're like, what do you think? And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, well, let us know how you feel this afternoon. So I went back, slept, came back that night, and they gave me an IV. They gave me some pills to make sure I didn't shit myself out on the ice, but literally, I'm not all kidding aside, they gave me some pills to get rid of all my headaches and everything and settle my stomach, a bag of IV before the game, and then I went and played. Now, 99% of the population wouldn't go to work feeling the way I did, let alone play a pro sport on national TV. And the reason I played is because I didn't want someone to take my spot that night.
Wow.
So you say, like, what was the hardest part?
Right.
The hardest part for me was staying in the league. And it's a shelf life. And, I played a little over 400 games in the NHL in 7 years, but it's a week-by-week basis. If I have 2 or 3 bad games in 1 week, I'm out of the lineup. So it's not a quarter-to-quarter, year-to-year thing.
I love how you put that in perspective for us, because I feel like without having talked to somebody that's actually been through it or in it, there's just an idea of what it's like, oh, it's only competitive in freshman year of high school or for trying to get on the varsity team, and then it goes to college. No, this is universal. And I love the fact that nowadays you can pull up like a Hard Knocks on TV and you can see that these guys who are all top draft picks are going and competing for spots. You know, it never goes away, which I think makes sports so amazing, right? It makes you fight for your job. And then there are guys who are just elite players, like in basketball, LeBron James. Guy never has to worry about a spot ever, right? But for those of us who do fight for it and make it, it's well earned.
Yeah, and those guys have different pressures. I mean, I call them the prodigies, you know, and the prodigies, if they stay on the right path and train and take it serious, like God's given them these gifts and they take it seriously, they're going to make it and they're going to make a lot of money. But when they're there, their expectations are higher. Like they're making a lot of money, and if his team doesn't win, like it's his fault, you know, so they get the brunt of it. There's a lot more criticism in the media and all of that they have to deal with. And also you play with some of these guys, everywhere they go, they get recognized. And so now they don't really have it's like their social life is different, you know, like I played with some guys and I've seen it where, you know, they can't go out, and it's really like it now. Like in today's day and age, the athletes, it's different. It's different than when I played because everybody's got a camera on their phone. So guys have to be really careful, like really careful. Even I'm just as a broadcaster. If I'm out doing events or if I'm out with some friends and somebody sees me and wants to take a picture, like I've had people take pictures of me without me knowing. And then I've seen them or they've said something. I'm like, well, like that's not really cool. Like just ask me. I'll do a picture. Right. But I don't want you taking a picture of me drinking a beer or something. First of all, like our organization is sponsored by Coors. So what if I'm drinking a beer different than Coors? Second of all, I don't want it posted. Like I don't post stuff like that. So we just have a thing that, you know, like if I take pictures with people, if I'm at a wine event and I'm drinking wine there, that's not bad, but I don't post it because it could get misinterpreted or something. It's just one of those things. So you always have to be cognizant in that regard, more so for the players because they get recognized a lot more. So it's a different world. They make more money than they've ever made, but their expectations and the way they are treated through the media and social media can be excruciting at times.
That's so true. That's so true. You can't. You're always on watch nowadays. There's just no doubt around it. Especially in San Francisco, they probably have cameras in the skates now and in the walls. I don't know. It's just Silicon Valley.
Hockey's not that big here, so you know it's big. Hockey's big here, but the Giants, the 49ers, and the Golden State Warriors are bigger.
Right.
So that's one thing here, but like up in Canada, like for players that play in Canada, it's crazy.
Last year, you guys got close, man. It was a Stanley Cup showdown, and unfortunately, you guys didn't come up winning. But you know what? Who's to say this year can't be the year, right?
That's exactly right.
You played. I dug up some information. You played in 25 Stanley Cup games. Is that correct?
Well, playoffs. I never made it to the Stanley Cup.
Never made it to the Stanley Cup.
No.
Was that a big dream? And when you get to the NHL, right? That's what you play for, right? To win a championship, and then
Yeah, and to be a part of a team, yeah. So unfortunately, like it was cool watching this team go to the finals last year. And, you know, after the first round, they beat LA, I don't call any more games. So I was an ambassador to the team and a super fan because I still get paid by the team to cheer for them, right? That's what we do. So, but it was cool because I know the guys. I know how much it meant to them. I know how hard they worked. Unfortunately, I didn't make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. I won a championship in the International Hockey League with the Chicago Wolves, which was cool. So that's like the equivalent of AAA baseball. Same thing. You go through a year-long journey with a bunch of guys, and it's cool. It's the thing about sports in getting to the playoffs is now you're in it. You're playing for every other guy on your team. You know, like that's, you know, we'll talk about it later. One of my mottos is make others better. Like, great. That's what teams are all about. Like, you got to make others better. So, you know, if you got selfish guys on your team, it typically gets exposed in the postseason at some point.
So in over 400 career total games, was there one that's the most memorable for you that, I mean, you always can think back on, or that you're like, man, that was just an unbelievable day or night or experience?
Playoff games, you know. My first game in Ottawa, like I'll always remember my first NHL game. Ottawa was an expansion team in my hometown, so the first game there I'll always remember. you know, it's either highs or lows typically, you know. I remember the one game I got beaten up pretty bad in a fight. Like, you remember that. I remember taking the slap shot, you know, like the slap shot in the head. I remember that. I remember scoring the game-winning goal in Game 7 against Detroit, which is still considered one of the biggest goals in San Jose Sharks history. I remember beating Calgary in Game 7 in the second round. I remember, or in the first round the following year, I remember winning the championship in Chicago, things like that. So,
yeah,
all the bigger events.
Online it says that you are best known for scoring the series-winning goal for the Sharks in the 7th game of the 1994 Western Conference Finals.
Correct. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut, Manny.
Hey man, you were much better than that. You got to give yourself a little bit more credit than that, my friend. Come on.
I was on. You know what? I tell people I was on the ice.
Yeah. Hey,
if you're good enough to be on the ice, then you have an opportunity to maybe do something awesome, right? And even if it doesn't matter if it was lucky or not, the thing that was the goal, that game-winning goal was a lucky goal. Me being on the ice with 6.5 minutes left in a deciding Game 7 was not luck. That was hard work and perseverance.
Yeah, good for you, man. You got to be proud, dude. That's so exciting. I'm proud of you, and you know.
It's a long time ago, though. So.
But you're a good person, man, and that's what I love. So, you know, hearing this come out of you is just awesome, and I enjoy taking a listen for it. So.
You didn't play against me. You don't know. I wasn't that nice on the ice.
Hey, by the way, we just got a hockey team here in Vegas. You know that?
I know.
I'm sure that's a big buzz. So you're going to be coming to town, and
I hope so.
I'm gonna be, you know, right there with you, my friend, cheering you on and learning your sport more than I've ever known, because we've never had anything more.
I think it's going to be great. I think it's good for Vegas.
It is, dude.
What do you think? Is there a good buzz going on there?
A huge buzz.
I mean, it's early though. They got another year, right? A year from now, they're going to have a team.
Yeah, we have some time. I think they're trying to finalize the name of it right now. Actually, I think 3 that are up for contention. You know, obviously the other big news is the Raiders right here in town too. So it's like we're having this complete.
So has that happened? What's going on with the Raiders?
Well,
we're talking about
the funding got approved by the city. So
for a new stadium.
For the new stadium, correct. Past that, it's going to go down to who's going to approve it within the league, and you know, there's so many more hurdles that have to be jumped in order to get it done. You know, that's probably several years out, but who knows? Although, you know, every big person in town, including Steve Wynn, who I watched an interview recently, said that's the best thing that could ever happen to the Las Vegas economy is if they brought the football team here. So, coming from that man's mouth, pretty strong. Some pretty strong.
It's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah. Yes. We'll see. All right, man. So you kind of put the stick swinging away, the beating people up, kind of gave it up, and you transitioned into broadcasting. How did that opportunity come up for you after you were done? Did you go out and seek that, or did they come to you and say, "Hey, listen, I want you guys to do our radio"? Can you talk to me about that a little bit?
Yeah, they kind of approached me, but I was also at a point in time where I needed to find something to do. You know, I wanted to do something. It was both want and need, you know, like to get busy, to do something I was passionate about, make some money. You know, I tried a bunch of things after I retired from hockey, and I was in high tech for a few years and I loved it. I worked for 2 or 3 startups here in the Bay Area. Then my family moved back to Ottawa. I invested in a company there. Then I worked for them. I ended up moving back here. Then I was working in the telecommunications at Global Crossing. So not many ex-players go into technology, let alone like telecommunications. Like this is the stuff like fiber optics and all that stuff, you know. So I really learned the backbone of the internet. I was in a learning phase. I loved it. Like every day it was moving. It was great. The problem is I didn't know we were going to have the financial crisis and the whole internet, you know, the bust. You know, like what was it? Yeah, like late 1990s. It was the early 2000s. It was right then, but it started in the sector I was working in, which people used to tell me, "You're like, Bakes, if this is a 9-inning baseball game, we're in the first or second inning." Nobody said that the third inning was going to be a disaster, right? So they didn't know that. This was it's all new. So I left there, and then I was like, okay, what do I want to do? And that's when I went and got my Series 7. You know, I did that, my insurance, and whatever else I had to take. the Series 66 in Arizona. I was living in Scottsdale at the time. Now my family's moved to Scottsdale, and it doesn't fit my resume. I was working with someone else, and I was going to be more of a marketing guy. I wasn't going to be an analyst. And I was there about a year. It just wasn't me. You know, I ended up just like literally leaving that industry. I'm like, I'm done, and walked away. Tried a startup for a little while called X-Pro Media. That didn't work, and that was more bad. It was kind of it was a good idea, but it was just a little bit ahead of its time. We didn't have the right team funding, but more than anything, it was, you know, we were trying to do like a social community for ex-pros, but this is before Facebook and YouTube, and also provide video for youth sports participants. So it was way too tech heavy. It was ahead of its time. So, and then from there, things weren't going great in my marriage, and the Sharks kind of came. There was a full lockout, I think, in 2004, 2005, and they sat out a whole year. And then it was after that year they came back for the following year. They said, "Do you want to be the radio guy?" And it was just a perfect timing of like, I need to do something here. I hadn't been making any money for a while, and I made a little bit of money, you know, playing in the NHL back in the day, but not that much. Like, it gave you a head start in life.
Sure.
But it was not like today. Like, you take 1 0 off the end, and that's a significant zero. Like 3 million versus 300,000. We're talking completely different.
Right.
So I had a little head start in life, but I was not set for life by any means. And you want to stay busy. You want things that are passionate. So I went into it. First year they came. I said, "Yeah, I'll give it a try." And I had no expectations that if you told me then I was going to be doing this 12 years, I would have disagreed with you. Like, no, I'm going to do it for a bit, and then I'll figure it out from there. And first year, my family stayed in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I went back. I didn't do the full season, but I was basically everything other than games in Scottsdale or in Phoenix were away games. So I did a lot of flying in between games and stuff. It was a hard year, and that was kind of I don't want to say the year that really put the nail in the coffin regarding our marriage, because I think we got separated a year or two later, but that was when we really grew apart. Nothing happened. We just grew apart. We still got along. We were friendly. We were still friends and good parents, but we weren't in love anymore. We just, we weren't partners. And but then the next year we moved back here to San Jose, and I just stayed on, and here I am today. I organically got a little bit better, putting in some time, and liked it more, and it's kind of carved it out. It's a lifestyle gig. You're not going to get rich off of it. You get summers off. You're around pro sports. And I don't know how long I'll do it. It's literally year by year. Every year or two, you get a new deal. It's only a 1 or 2 year deal. You never know. And I like it, and we'll see what happens.
So when you got the first offer 12 years ago, you had no experience as a radio personality?
No.
Oh, was that scary?
A little bit. And I don't know, like some people want, they want to go right to TV or do this. And that's one thing. The expectations are lower being on TV, on radio. So I knew hockey, and my partner was, I don't know, like nobody really tells you at the time that, oh, you're brutal, but like you have an idea like 2 years later when people say you've really, really improved.
Right.
Like you're like, and the way they say it, you're like, well, the way you said it, you're like,
yeah,
really bad. They're like, well, you've improved a lot. And I get that right now with the TV. So it's like, you weren't very good at the beginning. So, but I'm okay with that. I mean, if you can hang in there long enough, like you got to have room to continually grow and strive to be better. But there was no training. They're like, because they want your kind of personality to come out. They want to see if it's the right fit. They want to see if you like it. So I like the way it was organically done.
Right.
And it's worked out for me.
Did I know what you mean, man? So when I first started this podcast, I couldn't even tell you. I probably botched and stuttered and muffed so many words and had pockets of air because I didn't know what to say. And, as you go, you get more confidence, you get a little bit better, you learn each time, and you re-listen to the audio, and you kind of study yourself.
Yeah.
I can see exactly what you mean because, listen, I'm never going to be perfect. I'm never going to be the best.
No one is.
Yeah, never, ever. But I can see the growth, and in that I feel good about it. So
Well, you just be yourself. Like once you get more comfortable, you got to get comfortable with the format. And once you're comfortable with the format, then you can start to be yourself. Like it took me, I felt last year was the second year on TV. TV and radio are completely different. I had to break a bunch of radio habits and stuff. And I told my wife that with 2 months left in the season, I said, I'm finally starting to feel comfortable, like somewhat comfortable. So up until then, I didn't even really watch myself that much because I knew it wasn't like I was still just getting comfortable with the format, with the new partner and everything.
So talk to me about kind of what goes on as a radio personality, and then obviously you transition to now you're the color TV commentator, right? Is that what I said it is?
Yeah.
What is a color TV commentator, by the way? Just a TV commentator?
Yeah, really, I'm an
Why
expert.
they call it a color TV and not just a TV?
I guess color. I guess I don't think anybody has black and white TVs anymore.
Yeah.
You're just so I'm like a broadcaster, or I'm like I'm the Sharks analyst.
Got it. Okay.
TV analyst. So I'm on TV and I'm the analyst. So there's a play-by-play guy, and then there's me.
That's my mistake. I don't know why I got thrown off by the color thing. That just flustered me.
Yeah.
So what happens in there? Like what's kind of the workload? That's fun. So that's part of the business that you really don't know too much about, and it's fascinating to me. At least I know that is. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Is this are people? It's a podcast, so it's all audio, right?
Yeah. No.
You and I are.
You're going to be on YouTube, my friend.
Oh, so there's video too. So this is. I'm actually started today. I'm starting to do my prep, and this is kind of like it's funny. Like it looks. I've done different formats, but because I use this, I can fill out all 4 pages. This is one from last year in the playoffs. Okay. So, like, there's the teams. You can flip it over. There's notes, and then inside, like if you look, I've got all the notes.
Oh,
so
wow.
All four pages of this are notes. Now, I don't use all of them during games.
Right.
Sometimes I use barely any, but the process of going through it and writing it down it's going in your brain. Now, I'm doing it, the eve of the Sharks' first game against LA, which I'm actually not doing the game, but I'm going to go through the process of my prep just to get ready, and then I start on the weekend.
So with those notes, are you just practicing imprinting things in your brain so you have things to talk about? Or you're just making yourself aware of information so that you can, if number 8 shoots and scores a goal, you can reference back and say, well, he did this and that, or
yes.
Is that how?
So all player information, notes on players, notes on the teams, the rivalry, all that. Yeah. So like you're always kind of on, when I'm in my car, I'm listening to the NHL channel on XM, Sirius XM, and I'm reading the clips. I'm going to start, like, now that the season's starting, I'm going to be watching games all the time.
Right.
You live, breathe, and talk hockey, and then I got to go on. The thing I can do in real time during a game is I can analyze and break down plays. So, I can use the telestrator and stuff, and I have to try and explain it in a very quick and concise way.
Right.
You're educating, entertaining, informing the viewing audience. Think of those 3. Like, I don't know which one is a priority. It depends on the game.
Like a good mix of all 3 would be.
But so you have all this prep, and that's where this, like, I do this because I can access the information. Like, usually I have one page is the main page that's in front of me that I'll go to that stuff. And there'll be some things that I may want to talk about during the game or little things, but then I can access information elsewhere. Or even on this one, I can see I have quotes. So these are some quotes from players. Like, I can't memorize it all.
Right.
But many concussions. So I have to write these down. But when I write them down, I know they're there and I know where they are. So if it comes up in a game, like this one on Joe Thornton, he goes, we realize to take these guys out, it's going to be a lot of work. They're a great team, so we have to bring our best. Like, whatever, it's cliche, but like at some point if Joe Thornton's there and there's a whistle, there's a little bit of dead time, and Joe Thornton just did something, I'm like, yeah, Thornton knows how hard it's going to be. This is what he said this morning after the morning skate. Boom.
So that's what you do. You'll go and actually talk to these guys too. I mean, that's part of the job.
So I went to practice today. Like, I'll be going to practice all the time, and I was asking guys what they did in the summer.
Yeah.
You know, Mikhail Bodker, he's a new player here in San Jose. He came out here for 11 days with his girlfriend. I found out he spent 5 days in San Jose, 2 days in Napa, 4 days in San Francisco. You know, so I'll talk about that. So you're selling the players, you're selling the organization, you're selling the game of hockey.
And the games that you do, are they just broadcast locally?
Yep, for the most part. There's national games. They use another analyst for NBC games, a guy named Brett Hedican, who does a great job. And then some of our games are picked up national, so it varies. And
that's probably going to be more this year, right? Because you guys went to the Stanley Cup last year. Does that have any influence?
Yeah, I don't know how they do all that.
That's cool.
It's a good question.
Let me ask you this question. What do you think makes you such a good broadcaster and commentator? At least good enough to keep you going for 12 years.
Exactly. I was going to say, like, I'm in the same business as the players. We get scrutinized, so there'll be people say he's brutal, whatever. Why I've been here is passion for the game, my knowledge of the game, and ultimately my preparation. My willing to put in the time to prepare. Like, you know, and then, you know, you try and have your personality and stuff like that, have chemistry with the guy you work with.
Yeah, let me think about and talk about it out loud. I feel like in most sports, there's only a few select people who are good enough to remove themselves from the professional sport, whether it's NHL, NBA, NFL, MLB, that can go and start to be an analyst or a commentator. And I think that it becomes a matter of intelligence. And I could be wrong. That's why I'm talking to you about it, who is the professional. But you can listen to them or watch them on TV, and you understand the game better by listening to them. Is that something that separates the guy who wants to become a commentator and the guy that actually does become a commentator or an analyst or a broadcaster?
I have a college education. That helps.
Right.
For just general sentence structure and stuff like that. So you got to sound like you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You got to be able to put sentences together. You got to be able to do it pretty quickly.
Right.
Like, you know, you got to think fast. You're on your feet. Like that. When you're on camera, you're on camera. So, and some guys can be themselves and some guys can't. So I don't, you know, it's not for everybody.
Right.
And then some guys they don't necessarily want to put in the time, all the research. You know, you got to do, like, I don't have like the 9 to 5 job, you know, like I'm kind of always working, but I'm not necessarily, if you saw me, I have all kinds of free time. Like I could go golfing one day, but I could be working while I'm out there. If I'm playing with somebody that, you know, another broadcaster or somebody hockey wise, we could be talking hockey a lot that day. I could gather a lot of information. I don't golf that much, but it's just an example that, you know, we go out for dinners. Like when we're traveling, we're going out for dinners. Sometimes we go out after, find a place, may play some pool or go to a bar, have a couple of beers. But typically we're talking hockey for a lot of the time. It's a major portion of what we do. Yeah.
Great conversations to have, man, especially when you're talking about something that you love so much and that you've done your whole life.
Exactly. So
has there been a big change, or what's the transition been like from radio to TV? Has there been a big difference in the two?
Yeah, it was much more difficult than I thought. Like they told me it takes 2 to 3 years. I was like, yeah, but I've been doing the radio for a long time. Radio was just my partner and I, and he did all the technical stuff. So I just kind of showed up and we did it. You know, it was green eggs and ham. Like it's radio. It's kind of one and done in radio. You're in the car or something, and then it's gone. Like TV, it's always there. People have DVRs, they tape it. It's a full production, like a whole. You know, you're working with a lot of people on the whole thing. So all these pieces come together. So it's not just me. There's way more meetings. During the broadcast, I don't really control what I say as much or what I'm going to talk about, because they're like, well, we're going to come to this replay. So they're coming to a replay. Something happens, and the producer in the truck, he's talking to me. That's the other thing. I'm watching the game. When I'm on the radio, like I have my headphones on, I just talk when it's all about chemistry with my partner, and I just talk when it's time to talk, you know. And I'll have, you know, like there's monitors in the press box and stuff. I'll look for replays and things like that, but I'm just watching the game. I can say what I want. When you're on TV, you have to talk about what people are looking at.
Right.
I can talk about something 30 seconds ago.
Right.
Really, I can a little bit, but like when they're showing a replay, like I have to talk about that replay.
Your focus has to be so dialed in.
So I'm looking at the monitor. So like when I'm at ice level, when we work at home games, I'm at ice level. Okay. So, I have my earpiece in. That takes me back to the truck, so I can talk. I have a talk back button, and I talk to the producer. So if I see something, and like Joe Thornton does something great, I'm like, great play by Thornton there. Can we clip it? And then there's somebody in the room. They're like tapers. They're actually going to go and clip that for me. So we may look at it. So this is all happening in real time. Because they can hear me. Yeah. So they'll clip it. And then let's say the other team scores a goal. They're like, well, we got to go to this. And so we may never even use that clip. So there's probably 80% of the time, I probably 20 to 30 times a game, I'd say, like 20 times a game, I'm saying something back to the truck. Like, I really like that play. You, the viewer at home, you might see 3 of those.
Oh, wow.
Not bad. That's just, we got to go to commercial. We got to do a promo. They got to get all those in. So if the play goes on for five minutes and we're in a commercial break, like it doesn't matter. And then we come back from the break, we got to show something else, So it's a collaborative effort, and it just takes getting used to. So in all aspects, I had to be way tighter. They don't want me talking when the puck is in the defensive zone if there's a scoring chance, stuff like that. So where because you're watching it on the radio, it's a little different. Like if I'm talking, they don't like it if I'm talking. If there's a goal score, they don't want that. But if it is, like, you don't really know. Like, you're not watching it, you're driving. So if there's a 3-second delay of what something happens, it doesn't really matter. But that does matter on TV.
Yeah. Right. We watch TV all the time. We watch professional sports, and little do we know what's really happening behind the scenes, huh?
It's actually, like, live sports is interesting when you get to see it. It's a full-on production, and it's the one thing, like, if you look at cable TV, it's not saving cable TV per se, but it's the one thing. That's why they get the bids are so high, because Netflix, and we can DVR and tape all the other shows, but like sports is better live. Like, like with Twitter and all of that, like you already know the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to tape it and go back and watch it because you probably found out.
Right.
For the most, like one way or another. So live sports that's why these television studios they pay so much for the Super Bowl or just the rights, and it's interesting because when I screw up, and it happens, like you get stuff going on, your notes, you got this, the game's going on, you got replays going, there's all this commotion going on. When I mispronounce a word, like I hear about it on Twitter or it's on, like you got to be careful. You're on the fence all the time. And another thing, working for a team, nobody, like I hang around the players. I know the players. I like them. They're good guys. They're great guys. The guys on the team are great. These are like some really awesome dudes. And you get to know their families a little bit. Well, their families watch the broadcast. So if you say something about it, what if a guy screws up and the other team scores? So depending on how harsh I am, like when we're on the road versus at home, when we're at home, their families are usually at the game. They didn't watch it. But when we're on the road, like I can tell if I said something about a player, like when we get on the bus after the game, he knows because his wife is already probably texting. Baker's saying crap about you or something.
You guys probably laugh it off though, right?
Yeah. Yes and no.
Okay. All right.
Yes and no. It's,
That's funny.
A lot of pressure at the top level. So it's not always laughable. When they lose, there's like, nobody likes to get scrutinized publicly, but that's part of the job description that we have to deal with.
So, do they come down on you pretty hard when you make mistakes, whoever is on top of you or watching over and making sure? Is it kind of like, hey, buddy, you got to fix this here, polish it up a little bit? Or listen, if you do that one more time, you're done, man. I can't keep having you do that, which I'm sure is not the case, but kind of how does that work?
I had so I told my producer right from the beginning, who's also a friend of mine, he does a great job, Sean Madison, and he's like just amazing person, first and foremost. But I said, when I'd appreciate not hearing feedback right after a game. I need to decompress because you're kind of building up the whole day. Usually we work nights. There is the odd time it's an afternoon game, but for the most part, our games start at 7 or 7:30. So the whole day is kind of leading up to it. Then you got to be on during that game, and then you kind of like you want to come down. I'll analyze myself a little bit, have a feel how it went. But I'm like, if you have any constructive criticism, I said, first of all, bring it on, but do it via email, maybe late morning the next day. So you have time to think about it, you write an email, and then I have time to digest it. I said, when you do it, if you just bring it up to me, I'm probably going to get defensive. I'm like, yeah, but I was trying to do this. When you do it in an email, I can't get defensive. I have to just take it in.
Right.
So while one-to-one communication is always better, like from this standpoint, this leads to we can end up talking about it, but oftentimes we just do like anything you just talked about. Like we've come up with a format that works for me and him, and he sends me, so I'll get an email, and oftentimes he starts off with something positive, and he goes, okay, so you did this last night, or here's some things we got to think about, work on. So he's thoughtful because he's writing it out, and that's how we kind of do it, and it's worked really well. So over time, there's things to work on, and there's always something to try and improve on. And I try not to beat myself up. I beat myself up too much as a player. I try not to beat myself up as much as a broadcaster.
I'm sure you're doing a great job, my friend, and I'm going to do my best to get some footage and have my friends out, because I have a lot of friends in the Bay Area, by the way, and I go there all the time. So
okay, yeah,
I'll probably see you at a game soon, because now.
Well, if they don't like me, can you send me why in an email?
Yeah, totally.
And
I will.
you know what I mean? Like
I'm going to send out a message to all my friends in the Bay Area and say, listen, whoever watches the Sharks, please tell me what you think of Jamie Baker. That's all I'm going to say. And then they'll give me all the feedback I need.
And then say, if it's bad, send it in an email.
So, my man, if you weren't doing anything NHL related, what do you think you would be doing in your life?
I don't know. I'm like, as much as I love my job, I'm not part of the, I'm part of the entourage. I'm not part of like what's going to happen in the actual game. So I get to study and do all that, but I don't get to use my creativity as much, my personality. So I would be doing something. It could be sales, business development. I'm not sure. Something where like I have an active mind and I like to think. I like to be strategic. I don't really. I kind of miss that. That's what's missing in my job. And I love my job. Don't get me wrong. But I love my job provides like an adrenaline rush a little bit because you got to be on. But then there's some components. So I'd be doing something in that regard. I got a little side project I'm working on, a curriculum for youth sports. I coached at every level of youth hockey. So that's a side project, not necessarily something that I would make money on. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I look at youth sports and the wonderful opportunities for all these kids to be healthy, exercise, learn all the life skills and do all of that, be involved in a team environment if it's a team sport and all that. And I just see so many, oftentimes it's great, and then just as many times it's not great.
Right.
And a lot of it has to do with the adults. So I'm trying to come up with some things. I've been working on something for a long time on that.
I'm sure whatever it is that you do, you're going to be great at it, man. Listen, you've got a hell of a personality.
Well, we'll see. This is youth sports is a monster.
Dealing with kids is a challenge, right? But you know what?
No, it's big though. It's big, and there's but it's worth it. It's worth it to try and come up with something that might potentially improve the youth sport experience for all participants, adults and youth. So I'm in no rush because it's not like youth sports is changing. If anything, we already talked about it. It's so competitive right now. That it's not really, it hasn't changed, but I've been talking to some people. We'll see where it goes. More to follow on that.
Hey man, if you can help just one kid get better and be a little bit more competitive, reach his dream, and challenge the next guy for the spot. I mean, that's great work right there, man. That's the big picture, huh?
Absolutely. So
Cool, man. Before we wrap this up, man, I always ask one question, always the same one for now anyway, until I change that. But it is, what is your one message of inspiration for our listeners?
one message of inspiration. Perseverance. But I'll elaborate on that, but I'll go to my, I got to go to my phone because you're on my iPad. So if I go to my Twitter handle.
Which is what, by the way?
Bakes_Jamie13.
There you go. Bakes_Jamie13.
This is from an author, poet, Goethe, which I should know. In the realm of ideas, everything depends on enthusiasm. In the real world, all rests on perseverance.
Wow.
So perseverance is over, like, we haven't talked about it. We've talked about all kinds of things, which has been great. But like, I've had to overcome perseverance to get to my broadcasting career. You know, like when I was in college, my senior year, I got a really bad injury that was almost career threatening. I got kicked from behind, got slew footed, and I broke my leg and tore ligaments in my ankle. You know, and they said, and I had surgery. It was my senior year. My team, St. Lawrence, we were #1 in the nation at the time. I was our top scoring player. I was co-captain. I was one of the better college hockey players in the country at that time. You know, top 10 or 20. And my season, not only was my season over, they said this could be career threatening. So like, that took perseverance. So, you know, you got to follow your passion. You need to have preparation. Everybody does that. But perseverance, that's gutting it out. And that's not like for 6 months. Like, sometimes it takes years. Like, I went through a divorce and some, you know, financial tough times. And, you know, I've had to move here and I've gone through some injuries and this. You know, I've been through a lot of friends that I've had since my college teams, college and pro. So that encompasses 4 teams in college and then 10 in pro. So that's 14-year span. I've lost 11 guys who I've played with who have died. Wow. So you got to persevere through that. And I think my other message is, it's actually, I have it here on my wall, and I'm not sure if you can see it, but it says, make others better. I own the trademark, make others better.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's that's something I'm working on. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do with it yet, but you can make others better and focus on the moment and enjoy the journey. That makes perseverance possible. So when you say what's your one, like, how can you get somebody jacked up, or how can you send a message, something to make, you know what I mean? Like, what do you say? It's hard to say one thing. Perseverance means so much to me, but make others better, focus on the moment. And I'll share this. I'll share where I got that from. It was from an article. I love it. It's amazing. The team was traveling, and we were in Chicago. And it coincided, this is about 3-4 years ago, coincided with Michael Jordan's 50th birthday. And a guy named Mark Vancil for the Chicago Sun-Times wrote this article on Jordan and what made him so good. Great. And they said ultimately he could focus on the moment better than others. And it went on to say, it elaborated on that. Like, what was that? He said, fear originates in the past. More often than not, fear originates in the past, is metabolized in the present, and is projected into the future. But the past and the future aren't real. One of them is over. One of them is done. One of them hasn't happened. So I'll say it again. More often than not, fear originates in the past, is metabolized in the present, and it's projected into the future. It's fear. So like, I'll use hockey. If you're in the third period of a game, and you're worried about what happened in the first period, you're not in the moment.
Right.
If you're in the third period of a game and you're thinking about the celebration after or something, what's going to happen after, you're not in the moment. So the question was posed to Jordan, the same reporter posed. I think it was before that famous shot against Utah, end of the game that clinched the series or whatever. And they posed the question to him, at the timeout before you took that shot, did you worry about missing the shot? And his answer was authentic and perfect. He said, why would I worry about a shot I haven't taken? Well, because if you miss it, you're going to be on the front page everywhere as the guy that missed it. And if you sink it, you're going to be celebrating. And oftentimes people will think ahead, but you can't. You've got to focus on, he didn't even think about the shot. He was just worried about how does he know he's actually going to shoot? If they triple team him, he's going to have to pass it to somebody that's open, right? So it didn't even dawn on him. And if you think about it, it's very powerful. I've taught a lot of camps and, youth hockey camps and training. We got into I worked with a guy in the military, and we really got into the mental part of it. And we taught them, like, we'd get these groups and work in Tahoe up in the altitude for a week or two. We'd teach them, make others better, focus on the moment, which we did, and they really struggled with it, but we wanted to introduce it to them, and enjoy the journey. You got to enjoy the journey too. Like, you can't sit here and just say, well, I can't wait in 5 years, I'm going to go do this, because, well, you don't know what could happen between now and 5 years. So, like, you got to enjoy the journey. And it's hard to do when you're going through tough times. When you're going through tough times, if you make others better and you focus on the moment, don't focus what got you there. If you focus on what got you there, it's going to be tougher to get out of it. But if you focus on what you can do now and then find little things to enjoy, you are now on your road to persevering. And once you persevere and overcome adversity, you know you've done it in the past. You know you can do it again. You know you can do it again. So
it's mindfulness, my friend, isn't it? Mindfulness.
Not short answer, but
that's
desire to inspire. That's my desire to inspire right there. Like when I work with kids and stuff, like, it's those four things right there. I start with perseverance, but ultimately, like, the keys are make others better, focus on the moment, which is, I still work on this. I have to work on it every day and enjoy the journey.
I love it, man. I think you've got a great story. I think you're probably impacting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of lives already. You've done so for 2 decades at this point.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what's next on your agenda, man. I know you're going to make a huge dent in helping people, figure out that next phase.
I hope so. I hope I can make a dent on youth sports. That's my, that would be fun to do.
You're a guy of execution. I can already see that, man. You put yourself out.
We'll see what happens. It's worth it. It's worth it. I know one thing. It's worth it.
Yeah. So. Well, listen, man, again, I want to thank you so much for joining me here today, dude. It's been an absolute honor to have you on the show. You're a rock star, man. And how are the Sharks going to do this year?
Good. They're a good team. Just give yourself a chance to get in. You just got to get in you got to get your way to the dance, man. You just got to get into the party.
There you go.
So, man, I think they're good. They'll be good. They're a good hockey team, a well-coached hockey team. They're a motivated hockey team. Good balance of veterans and youth. They'll be good. Things can happen. Knock on wood, injuries or things can happen, but it'll be a fun year. So I'm looking forward to it. So now we got to get you up here when you're in the Bay Area. Let me know and we'll get you to a Sharks game.
I would love to. I'm
got to educate you on hockey. It's coming to Vegas.
Listen, I love growing and I love learning. So being that I don't know too much about hockey, is a perfect opportunity for me to grow into this new human. So
we'll teach you.
My man.
It's a good sport.
Great, man. Great having you today. I really appreciate it, bud. We'll see you soon.
Love what you're doing. Thanks, Manny.
Right. Thank you.
Cheers, brother. Yeah, bye now.